I live. I've lived with ghosts, cockroaches, and raccoons. I've lived with calico cats, dirty dogs, and an orange rabbit. I've lived with metropolitan mice, rural rats, and a possum. I've lived with substance shame, sex regret, and family guilt. I've lived with half-family, step-family, and chosen family. I've lived with parents having hepatitis C, cancer, and depression. I've lived with a boyfriend, husband, and myself. I've lived with translated Bibles, botched brochures, and bullets. I've lived with occult, Catholicism, and paganism. I've lived with broken nails, fevers, and souls. I've lived with virtuous monsters, powerful misfits, and damned angels. I've lived with migraines, stomach ulcers, and sobriety. I've lived with break-in and a shattered kitchen window. I've lived with punches, slaps, and a bite. I've lived with frozen pipes, hearts, and beds. I've lived with abuse, manipulation, and manifestation. I've lived with being fought over and forgotten. I've lived with passion, persistence. I've lived with devastation, underestimation, and exhilaration. I've lived with ancestors of colonizers, the colonized, and the lost. I've lived with green cards and citizens and those undocumented. I've lived with homeschool, public school, and dropping out. I've lived with beige carpet, linoleum, and pressed wood walls. I've lived with a broken down car, station wagon, and pickup truck. I've lived with no money, less money, sometimes money. I've lived with patches of strawberries, clover, and rosemary. I've lived, I've lived, I've lived. I have lived. I have lived. I have lived. I live.